Super Progressive, what is good? Just got back from Manchester, and this trip was really one of the best trips of my life, and it definitely changed everything for Super Progressive. So I just wanted to give you guys a little recap of what I learned, what I did over there, and definitely thank you guys for all your support, because this was really like the sickest trip ever. So yeah, let's get into it. I brought my camera along with me, and we had a pretty good time. So check it out. So this all started when I interviewed Mick and Nick Britton of Tilt at the end of 2022. And they had told me that they were doing this Hooj Choons showcase at the end of January with Quivver, John Graham. So I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, Tilt, Quivver, Hooj Choons, Manchester. This is like literally what Super Progressive is all about. So this trip was an absolutely no-brainer for me, and I brought my dad along for the ride. Peep the matching jackets.
Yes.
And as I spoke with the organizers of the event beforehand, just telling them that I was going to come over and like make some content, some historical content about this trip, they were like, "Hey kid, do you want to DJ the opening slot in the bar upstairs before the gig starts downstairs?" And I was like, hell yes. So I was so stoked and so nervous, but this was really like a dream come true to me. We flew over to Manchester. No, actually, we flew over to London and took the train up to Manchester. Now, 24 Hour Party People is like my favorite movie ever. And that movie tells the story of the Hacienda, Tony Wilson, and just like the Manchester scene and the bands involved, right? But this trip was going to be an opportunity to see some of the locations and places where those landmark events took place. And I am so freaking lucky because, you know, all of you, you know, I don't even call you guys followers, like so many of you guys have become friends, but you guys are such legends. And there's this guy, Adam, that reached out to me on the Super Progressive Discord, and he's like, "Bro, let's go do a walking tour of Manchester and we can see some places, you know, featured in the film 24 Hour Party People." And I was like, "Dude, this is the sickest idea ever. Let's do it." This is our guide, Adam, and he's going to show us all around Manchester, everything we got to know about rave history, general history. We're going to see it all. I'm so stoked about it. Yeah. So Adam ended up being like the hero of this trip because this walking tour was everything I could have hoped for. We met in the Piccadilly Gardens, and our first stop was at Lesser Free Trade Hall, Manchester's Lesser Free Trade Hall, right? Now, why is this important? Because in 1976, you know, this is like one of the coolest scenes in the film. In 1976, the Sex Pistols came and performed here, and it became known as the gig that changed the world. Now, why was this the gig that changed the world? It wasn't like people were weeping about how beautiful the Sex Pistols music was at that gig. That's not what it was about. What it was about that, like, there were 40 people in the audience, right? And of those 40 people would be some individuals that would go on to shape the future of British music. Now, who was in the crowd? So there was Howard Devoto and Pete Shelley, and they were two members of the band The Buzzcocks, and they were actually the organizers of this gig after taking a train down to London a few weeks before and seeing the Sex Pistols and being like, we got to bring this up to Manchester. There was Bernard Sumner and Peter Hook, who would become members of Joy Division, and then, of course, later New Order. There was Marky Smith of The Fall in attendance. And there was even a 17-year-old Morrissey who was covering the event for NME. And you can read his review of the event right here. I think what the magic of this gig really was all about was that everyone in attendance was inspired to say, like, if these guys can do it, so can I. So after seeing Free Trade Hall, we started walking down the street, and you could just feel the gravitational pull of the Hacienda. Like, I knew I was close. So the Hacienda now is the Hacienda Apartments, but you can like totally still feel the spirit of the club because around the back, there's this timeline along the canal that the club sits on. There's this timeline that shows all of the amazing bands and amazing moments and amazing things that happened in the club. And I actually didn't see this the first time we visited the Hacienda, but a couple of you guys recommended to me like, hey, go back. and check out the timeline. And I ended up doing a full live stream about it, and it was such a highlight. And even, the super progressive follower, Gareth, saw me doing the live stream and jumped off his train, and we got a pic together because he saw that I was right there and he was so close. It was really like the coolest moment of my life. But back to the Hacienda. And then Adam showed us this little window where you could look inside the car park, and you could see that the poles were painted with the same iconic yellow and black diagonal stripes that the poles inside the Hacienda were painted like when it was a club. And I thought that was really cool. And it got me thinking, because just like the Sex Pistols at Lesser Free Trade Hall at the gig that changed the world, legendary acid house nights at the Hacienda would inspire the future, the next era of underground dance music, right? You have Dom Phillips explaining in his book, Superstar DJs, Here We Go. Where is it? Oh yeah, that on the Hacienda dance floor, you could find Sasha, who would go obviously to become one of the first superstar DJs and really take the sound around the world. Jeff Oakes, who would go on to create Renaissance in Mansfield, and Dave Beer, who would go on, to create Back to Basics and run the Back to Basics Club Night in Leeds. And all of these guys were on the same dance floor at the Hacienda. And it just kind of reminded me of all of these guys who were in attendance at the gig that changed the world, that would go shape the future of British rock. So cool to me, and I loved seeing that parallel. And it gets even more poetic than that, because in eyesight of the Hacienda, so close to it, is, what is it called? Bridgewater Hall? Yeah, Bridgewater Hall. So what's important about Bridgewater Hall is that a couple years ago, Sasha hosted his live gig, his Refracted gig, at Bridgewater Hall. But it's super poetic. Adam was explaining it to us, and you could see how stoked he was getting. That, Sasha, one thing I learned, was one of the first clubbers to come off the dance floor and go into the DJ booth. And that happened at the Hacienda. And for him to come back 30 years later in the shadows of the Hacienda to perform his live show at Bridgewater Hall was just probably a full circle moment for Sasha, but also for all those clubbers in attendance who were at Bridgewater Hall for that gig, but got to remember those nights at the Hacienda. And I thought that was super cool. So on this walk, I also learned a lot about Manchester history. We saw the statue of suffragist Emmeline Pankhurst in Piccadilly Gardens, and then we saw where she unveiled a Votes for Women banner in the same Lesser Free Trade Hall, which was really cool. And then this was also really cool, being an American coming over to Manchester. There's this statue of Abraham Lincoln in this square called Lincoln Square. And it seems so out of place. You're like, what? But I learned that, so during the Civil War, Manchester was the top processor of cotton, right? And during the Civil War, a lot of that cotton was coming from the American South, produced by slave labor. And President Lincoln was like, hey, can you guys support us by doing an embargo on Southern goods? And Manchester not only supported that embargo, but when other British cities started to walk back on that embargo and taking in the cotton, Manchester continued to say, no, we will not take, slave-produced cotton. And this ended up shutting down something like 60% of their mills, but they were steadfast with it. And I think it was just really cool to learn that, because it shows how the real history of a city can kind of play into the spirit of its, I don't know, but it was cool. And then one thing that Adam showed us that was really cool was the Museum of Science and Industry, because right there on the first floor is the first computer. And obviously it's a long line from the first computer to electronic music, but they're obviously connected. But it also just shows you how pioneering with technology and forward thinking between technology and the arts Manchester is. And it was just really cool to see that. So, and then right around this area as well, we walked down to where Tony Wilson would produce, where the set was for Tony Wilson's Granada TV. And that was really cool to see, just since he is such a big inspiration to me and for this channel. So really cool to see that. Now, we ended our trip at the Marble Arch Inn, and of course, I'm going to give you my 3 favorite pubs in Manchester, and I enjoyed the Marble Arch Inn, Britton's Protection, so sick. And the Purvel of the Peak, and I want to like highlight this pub a little bit because it was literally the most authentic thing ever. And there's this super funny bartender named Jack, and I'm obviously like a huge Oasis fan, so I see a picture of Liam and Noel on the wall, and I'm like, hey bro, did like Oasis ever drink here? Was this like where they'd hang out? And he goes, no, but they took a shit outside. And I was literally dying. I thought it was the funniest thing I've ever heard. But yeah, those are my 3 favorite pubs in Manchester. So one thing I thought that was like so cool about Manchester in general is really how the city today has embraced its music history, and Factory Records and the Hacienda have really become symbols of this city. And I think what best showcases this is that Manchester's building this like international arts center, right? And they're naming it Factory International. This is like a hundreds of millions of dollar project, and they're naming it Factory International because it just shows how much Manchester has embraced its music history as a part of its identity today. Super cool, and I think that's one thing that makes this city such an awesome city. And dude, I really got to say a massive, massive thank you to Adam, because learning about the history of Manchester, the music history of Manchester, seeing some places where my favorite movie was filmed and about and stuff like that was just so cool. Bro, you made this a trip I'll never forget. And you also gave me, because now we're moving into nighttime, right? You gave me some awesome advice, because at this point I was just so nervous for my opening set, and Adam was like, bro, just focus on that first mix and you'll be fine. And that served me really well throughout the night. So thank you very much, bro. This was so sick.
All right, super progressive. What's good? About to go into Joshua Brooks for the warm-up set to Tilting Quivver's Hooj Choons showcase. This should be a lot of fun. Let's go.
So now it's nighttime and we're walking into Joshua Brooks, and this was really cool because before we got into the club, we noticed that, you know, right across the street from the club, basically neighbors with the club, was Factory. I guess the old Factory Records office, and there's so many amazing scenes in the movie, you know, featuring that office. So it was just like, it felt like it was such a good omen to see that before going in. But yeah, then I went in to Joshua Brooks. It's like a bar upstairs, club downstairs. Pretty much immediately started my set. And just like what Adam said, I was just focused on, I was so nervous, bro. But just got that first mix in and started going. I was playing a lot of like Nick Warren, Soundgarden, chill tracks. And then I see Adam walk in, and he sits down with my dad, and he has a beer. He gives me a thumbs up, like encouraging me, like everything seems chill. And then, bro, this is where like the real magic starts happening, because like super progressive followers start walking into the bar to come support my opening set. This bro, Steve, like, dude, huge shout out to you, bro. You're such a legend. I had so much fun meeting you. This guy drove like 3.5, 4 hours just to come early to come support me at, you know, for my opening gig. And he brought me this gift bag, bro. It was like the sickest thing ever. It was in this Global Underground tote. I'm going to go get it for you guys right now. All right, look at this. The Sick See You on the Dance Floor Global Underground tote. And this guy's collection is so legit that it was featured in the Global Underground 10th anniversary book. But check this out. This is the first ever Global Underground shirt put on sale. Still in the packaging, and he gifted it to me. I was literally like emotional. I'm like, bro, this is like too nice. And that's not all. James Lavelle Uncle shirt. So cool. Like, so freaking swag. This is where it gets crazy. Danny Tenaglia Athens, GU10 in Athens, promo CD. Check this out. I've never seen one of these. Promo CD. I was like, dude, what? So stoked to show Danny this. And then this Anil Chawla and Dale Arterson Roadhouse mix. Like, I'm stoked to research this and see what this is, because I really don't know, but it was so nice of him to gift it to me. And then check this out. Ready? Global Underground membership card. So sick. Dude. And then these like GU flyers, you know, Moscow. Dude, Los Angeles, John Digweed. This is like a bookmark. Oh no, is this a sticker? And this sick Dave Seaman, Melbourne, GU22. And I don't mean to show to brag. I'm just like literally showing just to express like my gratitude, bro. Cause dude, come on. Someone like drives all this way and gives you this awesome stuff. I was just like, this is the nicest thing ever. And that's honestly, it's like one of the nicest things anyone's ever done for me. So nice. And that's not it, because then I meet Eric and Wim, and get this, these guys flew in from Belgium for the night. I think their stay in Manchester was like 16 hours, 12 hours, something crazy. They got there and they came to the warm-up gig and they like introduced themselves. I was just like, what? I was just like, this is like the coolest thing ever. So thank you guys especially for coming early and supporting me during my opening set. And it went so well. And then like, as I was getting like into the set and time was getting closer to the set, it's like Nick Britton comes up and I'm like, dude, what is going on? This is so cool. And he's so nice. And then like Mick Park walks in and I'm like, dude, what? This is like so sick. It's like, a lot of like my heroes in this scene. And it was just like so cool for me. So thank you guys so much. And by the time like we were downstairs for Mick, bro, it was just all systems a go. This was like, Joshua Brooks is one of the sickest clubs I've ever been to. And people always say like small clubs are best. And this is like a night where I got to experience it. It is just the sound was sick. It's so intimate and it was just such a great vibe. Mick was absolutely killing it. And one of my favorite moments was like, I'm chilling with my squad. Like there's Adam and Steve and Eric and Wim and these guys are like on the first few beats like pointing out like classic tracks that are about to come in, and I'm like, you guys are such legends. This is so cool. Two of those tracks were Kilohertz West on 27th Street, like what a moment in the club. The other one was now I'm not sure if this is the right remix of it, but I think I remember someone telling me that it was Peace Division remix of Trendsetter's Roaches, which is obviously a legendary one, and I think that's the track that Mick played. But yeah, Mick absolutely smashed it. Right before he ended his set, I ran up just to run to the bathroom quickly, and like right there in the freaking stairwell is Quivver, and I was like, oh my god. And luckily Nick Britton was there. He's like the nicest bro ever. He introduced me. I got to take a pic, and I was like, dude, I would really love to interview you. So I'm setting that up. And no, Quivver was like super nice, bro. And then he was on, bro, and his set was awesome. And it was just so much fun to spend so many hours down there with you guys. Not only like, Mick, Nick, and Quivver, but also the guys that from Super Progressive that I met earlier. And then like the wave of people that were coming up during the show, either saying like nice things about the page or just that like they heard about the page. And bro, it's just like, it's the coolest feeling ever to go and meet you guys in real life at the clubs with the music that we love. And I mean, dude, like normally in the club, I'm like if I'm working, I'll use my phone to take some videos, obviously sometimes. But normally I'm like phone stays in the pocket, like obviously, like take this very seriously. But bro, I mean, when I started meeting you guys that like, follow the page and then you start telling me your handles and I realize we talk almost daily. Obviously I had my phone out taking like a million selfies, but I just wanted to do that because I just wanted you guys to know that how much I appreciate your guys' support. And this is like what I mainly learned from the trip, right? What I mainly learned is that why is this music so special to people all around the world? And I think like beyond how awesome the music is, obviously like the music comes first, but what I'm realizing this whole scene is about, that you can go anywhere in the world. You can be a kid from New Jersey going to Manchester and feel right at home on the dance floor, wherever you are, because not only are you surrounded by people that like the same music as you, but if you're really like a fan of this music, like you kind of ascribe to the values of the music as well. And everyone I've met in this community is like, number one, like super inclusive, also like super open-minded, super generous, and things we all love to do together is listen to this music and travel. So it's just like, you know, aside from being able to chat with you guys online a lot, which kind of sets the basis for like a friendship there, it's like I get to meet followers in the club and we become like legitimate friends. And that's something that is so special to this scene, and definitely the most special part of Super Progressive. So everybody that came up and introduced yourself, and everybody that made me feel right at home in Manchester, thank you so much. Hopefully this is the first trip of many to Manchester. I'll definitely be back. And just thanks so much for the continued support of Super Progressive, because this was really, really special for me. So thank you.